Hello everyone, I hope you're having an amazing day today, and in this video we're going to be talking about the not so amazing Spider-Man 2, which came out in 2014. Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and without any further ado, let's hop right into the review. So to start off with some of the good stuff that definitely works in this movie, the Spider-Man suit in this movie is really good, definitely an improvement over the original, and one of the best overall Spider-Man suits. I think most people would agree. The eyes just pop out really well, and it's just a little bit more colorful, and overall I think the cinematography, the visuals is better than they were in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, because a lot of people complained that it was a little bit too dark, and this one feels like it can be a little bit more lighthearted at times as seen just on the screen, but also just with the overall themes and that kind of stuff. But it is a little bit inconsistent because it can go from being a little bit too lighthearted to a little bit dark, and it doesn't fully transition all that well. And a lot of people don't really talk about this, but I do think Andrew Garfield's performance in this wasn't as good as it was in the first movie. It's not necessarily bad, but I just felt like it just wasn't as strong. But the romance between Peter and Gwen Stacy is still there, and it's done very well, and you even get to see him kind of have flashbacks of her dad as he kind of just looks back and has regrets, and the overall romance is just pretty good. And in this movie, we also get introduced to Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn actually in this universe. And the way they kind of do the goblin disease is very different from the original, and I don't think it's an improvement. And the movie does a decent job of making you kind of care for Harry, like as the people in Oscorp kind of start to take over. But I just don't think the relationship between him and Peter is very strong. It definitely could have been improved upon, and at the end of the day, it's just nowhere near as good as it was in the original Spider-Man trilogy. And it does feel a little bit rushed, the way the Green Goblin is brought into the story. And then obviously as our other main villain, we have Electro, who I just think is way too goofy for the movie he's in. The whole storyline with him just doesn't match the tone of the movie, and his origin story of him getting electrocuted and falling into the thing with eels just feels very ridiculous, just a whole new level of insanity. It just feels very lazy, and that definitely could have been improved upon. And I don't know if it did the best job of making you care for him as a character. Just the way the whole story plays out, it just feels very off. And then even the Rhino is in this movie a little bit at the beginning and the end, and it's not necessarily a good depiction of the character. And then you can tell that they were setting up some future villains that never happened. And that's kind of the thing about this movie. It is very heavily edited, and you can tell there were some deleted scenes at different spots. A lot of the stuff just doesn't flow well together, and so that's kind of the big flaw about this movie. They just had too long of a story that they had to kind of shorten into this 2.5-hour runtime, and I think they were even going to have like MJ in this movie, and they had to cut her. And as I already said, it is inconsistent in tone as well. Some of the stuff it does do right feels like it was actually improved upon over the first movie, like they actually kind of listened to what people liked and didn't like. But it has a ton of flaws on its own. And there's even more of the storyline with Peter's parents that I feel like no one really cares about, just answering a lot of questions that no one really even wanted to know. So this movie also at times just feels like it doesn't even know what it wants to be. There is some good action, although I do think he wasn't Spider-Man in this movie enough. There wasn't enough scenes with him being Spider-Man. And there is good emotion, and the standout sequence is the final battle, which I think is overall done pretty well. It is cool what we do get to see of the Goblin and his gadgets, and the death scene with Gwen Stacy is very emotional, and kind of the way the movie ends is overall very solid. But if you haven't watched it, I would still recommend it if you're a fan of Spider-Man and you would like to see all the movies, although it definitely isn't the best of the Spider-Man movies. So overall, on the quality scale of 0 to 100, we'll give it a 67%. There is definitely good elements in it, but it is a flawed film. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If there's a movie you would like me to review, just let me know in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.